Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're here to talk about accounting corrections. Before we get started on that, I have a few technical things here. Click the little red arrow at the sidebar of your control panel to minimize that webinar control panel, get it out of your way, or drag it off to your second desktop if you've got a dual monitor set up. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel for me. I'll try to keep an eye on those, try to get them answered during the event. If not, I'll certainly be happy to stick around and answer them after we conclude our topic today. With that in mind, our topic for today is taken from our A202 accounting workbook, training workbook, pages 31 through 36. Actually, I think it's 37. If you don't have the webinar workbooks, you can, or the training workbooks, you can purchase those from the Church Windows website under our workbooks page. They're certainly not required, but they might help. We are recording today's webinar event, so this webinar will be, the recording of this training topic will be available on our website here at some point in the next week or so. I think we may even have one from an earlier version out there on the website right now, but this one is on our version 20. Please keep the questions topical about our correcting accounting transactions. You know, it's not I don't want to answer it. It may be something which is specific to your data, or I may not be equipped for it in either my data or just my thinking, so it's not because I don't want to answer it. Of course, folks, our support staff are always available and happy to answer any questions that you have about Church Windows, so please don't hesitate to contact us. We're going to be together till about 20 minutes after. If this event takes this long even, it may be shorter than that, but let's go ahead and get started. So on page 31, it talks about making corrections. So accounting corrections are, we're human. We make mistakes. Mistakes happen and they require that we fix them in some way, shape, or form, okay? Many times your options are simple. We can either correct them in many cases, or you can choose to reverse an entry depending on what needs to be fixed, okay? Corrections in accounting fall into one of two categories. Corrections that do not require a reversal of the entry. There's nothing that in our setup or construction of the software requires a reversal for audit purposes. And then there are those types of corrections that do require a reversal and a re-entry, okay? So let's talk about making a correction that does not require a reversal, okay? We posted an income transaction where we didn't enter a payment method, or the payment method was wrong, and we want to fix that. So we go into transactions and browse. This opens our browse transaction screen. We're going to go right up to change year, filter, and sort. We're going to clear all here on the right. We're going to check just income transactions, and we're going to click OK. And it reveals a handful of income transactions throughout the course of the year that we now need to fix. Okay, so right here we've got a miscellaneous income transaction on May 2nd that we need to fix. So we highlight that, and then we go right up to the very top here and we click on the button called Correct right here. Hopefully everybody should be able to see my bubble and my circle and my arrow there. All right. And then so when we click on that Correct button, it opens up our correct payment or our correct income transaction screen. And here we didn't record a payment method. So we're going to say, okay, it was an EFT transaction. I can't even go so far as to enter a transaction number if I wish. And then when I click on Save Corrections, it pops up with a message that says your corrections have been saved, okay? The original transaction number of 149 did not need to be reversed and re-entered, okay? The Church windows will determine whether the reversal is required or not. Another situation where something is, where maybe corrections are required, where they don't require a reversal, is if we now choose our fundraising income, and we go, okay, went into Huntington Bank checking, fundraising income, and I want to come in here and I want to enter some comments now. So we're going to type in, men's car wash fundraiser. Okay. So then we now click Save Corrections. I could put those in the line item comments too if I wish, but then I simply click Save Corrections. And again, it says your corrections have been saved. So things like payment method, checker reference number, comments, those are the types of things that in our design construction concepts for the software can be just saved without affecting the original audit trail. Okay? Now, there are transactions where corrections do require reversal for audit purposes. Something was important enough to be changed where we did want to maintain a record of what was entered, okay? Let's say we posted a transaction for the wrong amount, okay? So we go up to, let's see here, what do we have? Let me see if I've got some... I don't have any journal entries, so sorry, folks. Let's do something different. So we're going to go, okay, we've got a, let's see, transfers, no transfers either. I'm sorry. We're going to go back to our income transactions again. So we click on income, and here we're going to say our Lynn Schwab investment transaction here of the 1437 was wrong amount. We highlight correct, and we're going to say, okay, we entered it for $1 different than what it was actually posted. So we're going to say it's 1436.58. Okay, so we were $1 off. And so we now click Save Corrections, and it pops up with now the message that says your corrections required, that transaction 150 be reversed and re-entered, and our new transaction number is 153. Okay, so we now click OK on that. It still shows our Lynn Schwab investment income. Now when I go back up to my change year filter and sort and I check show reversed and click OK, it now really reveals the original 150 transaction, the 152 that was the adjusting entry that corrected our books, and then of course the new entry with the correct amount. What generally triggers the reversal and the re-entry is when the things like our amount change or our account. So if we go back to our new transaction and click on correct, not to change here there. So if we click correct, and it opens up our correct income transaction again, if I were to change the date or any of the accounts or the amount, those are the things that will trigger a reversal and a re-entry. But again, Church Windows does it for you, okay? This, to me, is one of the really best features about accounting, is the correct feature. I strongly recommend using correct whenever or wherever possible, okay? I don't need to go in and reverse something and repost it if a correction will work. One, it minimizes our mistakes, and two, it's a whole lot faster, okay? So use correct whenever possible, all right? So I did kind of skip over something important in there in the middle on page 32, a correction no-no. This is important. So we're going to come back to clear filter here. And if for any reason, we highlight a particular transaction, like say here we've got our payment from, something from payment from January 15th here, and I click correct. If a transaction has been reconciled, it's going to pop up whether I choose to correct or reverse it. It's going to pop up with this message that says the transaction has been reconciled. It is not recommended that you correct a reconciled transaction, as doing so will affect a finalized bank reconciliation. Do you wish to continue? It'll still allow me to do it. But generally, if the item is reconciled, we would not want to correct this, because what it would do is, if it required a reversal and a reentry, it would create a new unreconciled transaction, and it would show up on my next bank reconciliation for the respective asset. Okay? There are generally other ways to deal with correcting transactions or correcting our books without necessarily correcting a reconciled entry. Okay? So just pay attention to this message. Pay attention to these types of messages. Okay? This would be true whether if I were to cancel out of that and highlight it and click reverse, it'll pop up with the same exact message. Okay? So generally we advise against correcting or reversing reconciled transactions strongly. Okay. Bottom of page 33 talks about reversing a transaction by choice. Okay? Not so much a correction per se, but a correction in a way, some way, shape, or form. Okay? So if we go down here and we choose a transaction, let's see, a payment. Let's go into a date later period here, folks. Sorry. Here we go. We got a bill or a payment here. We highlight it. We click reverse. It always pops up, and there's two tabs here, recommended and advanced options. So it's going to default to recommended, posting it, reversing it as of the original date occurred, in this case February 15th. I can enter comments of some kind if I wish. Advanced options does present some different choices. I can reverse it as of today's date or a different date in the same accounting year. But folks, those can be really dangerous if you're not sure what you're doing with this. I would definitely not do this with transactions that involve cash or my bank reconciliation. Okay. Frankly, I rarely, if ever, post something with a, reverse something with a date different or other than its original date. If you did not want to affect, say, your reports for an earlier period, things like bills, reversing them might be something which is acceptable, but there are pretty rare circumstances in which I would reverse a transaction with a date that's different from the original date of the transaction. It is an option for you, but if you reverse it and you go, oops, I shouldn't have done it with a different date, there is no way to go back and unreverse it and correct it or fix it. So, if you're unsure about how this type of thing might affect your entries or what it might do for you, call us, call me through support. I will ask you the appropriate questions as to what might help us determine which choice you want, okay? But just be aware, it's going to default to recommended. The original date, advanced options should be used sparingly, if at all, okay? But then you would simply click OK, and it'll say permanently reverse the transaction number. We click yes. It then pops up and says the original transaction number has been reversed and posted a new adjusting entry. Okay? Again, if you're unsure about which option to choose, and on page 34 of our workbook topics here, it does talk about, you need to think carefully about the date that you use to reverse a transaction, especially if the transaction affects an asset account. Okay? Because again, if I reverse a transaction as of a different date than the original date and the transaction affected my bank reconciliation or my cash account, I may not reconcile because of that improper reversal. Okay? So again, you may want to pay attention or take a peek at that page 34 topics about items to think about when reversing where cash is concerned. Okay? Yeah, definitely, again, if it's a transaction that's affecting my bank accounts and possibly my bank reconciliations, folks, there is nothing I'm going to do than to reverse it as of the original date if I choose to reverse it at all. There are other ways to deal with it, okay? All right, so we've got about 4 minutes left here. There's one more topic that I want to talk about that would warrant a reversal, or correction, excuse me. That's important, and it's a very important support topic and question that we get, so I want to move on to that fairly quickly. We would go to pay bills. When we go to pay bills, and under here, quick pay and view outstanding bills, one of the most common support topics we get here is, hey Josh, I've got a bill that shows up here in my view outstanding bills list that I know I paid. And the first thing that I ask them when they call me about that is, and I speak with them, is the amount due is the amount of the bill. What is the account balance? So they go, oh, it's 0. Okay, well, the account balance being 0 pretty much confirms that the bill was paid. Okay, so all we have to do now is to go into our transactions and browse. We're going to have the system do some work for us. Go up to change year, filter and sort. I'm going to click, we've got a video out on the website about this, by the way, just on marking bills as paid. Click check just bill transactions, unchecking show paid, click OK. There are my 2 bills that are outstanding. Okay, so I would simply highlight Christian, one side of that, worship supplies or Christian Bible supplies. It's the same, flip side of the same transaction. Click correct. Click mark as paid. Find that January 2018 payment right there, $746.87. Click OK. Save corrections. It then says your corrections have been saved. Nothing in the audit trail has changed. We click OK. It removes that bill from the list because it no longer meets our criteria of an unpaid bill. Simply do the same thing for the second one. Highlight it, correct, mark as paid. Based on the date of the bill, in this case February 15th, $500. There it is. It was paid on March 15th, it looks like. Highlight it, click OK, save corrections. Now when I go back to pay bills, quick pay, view outstanding bills, there should be nothing in my list. There is nothing. I did have a balance in my account there that I might need to address, but it was not tied to the same problem as the outstanding bill. Okay? So, and again, another good example of where you may need to use correct. Okay? Use correct, folks, whenever and wherever possible. It will save time and minimize mistakes. Okay? It's what it's there for. Okay, so that is our topic. Again, folks, you've got something out on the website on the marking bills as paid out there as well. If you need a review of that, there is a video out there on that. That was kind of a quick tour of that. Let's see what questions we've got here. Would an exception to date change rule be if you entered current date when reconciling entered an item should have been in previous month and you correct so it shows that correct amount as it should? Yeah, that's true, Jeanette. That would be true. That might be a situation where if I correct something for a payment transaction, if I posted it in the wrong month, sure. But I would want to make absolutely sure that even that correction wasn't going to impact a previously reconciled month. If it was wrong, I could also leave it alone and just not check it, and it would show up as outstanding in the following month, and I could just clear it. But sure, that might be an exception, again, where a correction for a transaction, a payment or something where I might do that. Yeah. But again, that would occur, again, reversing and correcting must be kind of looked at and treated differently. Okay. So, you really have to, ask yourself the right questions. What am I impacting when I reverse versus correct? Okay. It's really important to kind of teach yourself to ask those questions. So here what I'm looking for is a payment transaction or something. Yeah, again, I'm not going to do anything in January because that's when I'm reconciled. So, again, if I highlight it, click correct, sure, I can change the date occurred on it. I just have to be aware of what I'm affecting. If I'm reconciled and that transaction is reconciled, I'm doing nothing to it because I wouldn't have reconciled to 0 if the transaction was wrong. If it was, how would I have reconciled to 0 if the entry was wrong, whether it was the date or the amount, or if it was the wrong account, I can find another way to correct that. Okay, so I can do like a transfer and a journal entry between accounts if I affected the wrong, say, income or expense account or something. I don't necessarily have to affect the reconciled or cleared transaction. Okay, good question. You're very welcome. Thank you. I'm glad these webinars prove helpful. Folks, if you haven't checked out the webinar or the Support Center page on our website, please do. There are hours and hours of videos out there that are already there probably already on this topic. You know, the only difference is we're just doing it in the new updated version. But generally there's a webinar out there or a recording out there of a video on this same topic from an earlier version where 90% of it or more is still relevant. So please use that. It's a very wonderful database and we're constantly updating it. So I'm glad they help. All right, folks, I don't see any other questions coming in. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. If you have questions, please contact our support staff, of course, and we hope to see everyone at a future Church Windows webinar event. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.